This is a Renew original recording. Hello and welcome to Believe in People, a British podcast award-winning series about all things addiction, recovery and stigma. My name is Matthew Butler and I'm your host, or as I like to say, your facilitator. Today I'm joined by Paul Haley, Changegrow Live's National Service User Involvement Lead, who shares his remarkable journey from heroin and crack cocaine addiction to nearly 2 decades of sobriety. After reaching rock bottom, Paul rebuilt his life with resilience, purpose and a deep commitment to supporting others, demonstrating that recovery isn't just possible, but truly transformative. As our conversation began, I reflected on how, despite knowing Paul for a long time, I'd only recently learned about his lived experience. Paul mentioned that he assumed everyone knew he was in recovery, almost as if it was an unspoken truth. Intrigued by this, I asked him about what it was like to have addiction shape so much of his identity and how that influenced the way that he saw himself and the world around him. Paul? Welcome to the Believe in People podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I've asked you to come on today because I've known you for a relatively long time. Ironically, I did say I feel like this is the first time we have met in person, but I've known you a long time. But I only recently found out that you are lived experience and you're in recovery yourself.
Yeah.
The interesting thing that I found is just before we started this, you said you think everybody knows you're in recovery, like we wear it like a badge, and I think that is a common misconception, isn't it? That when you are in recovery, you feel like everybody knows everything about you. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that to begin with. What's that like to kind of have that as such a huge part of your identity?
It's been a positive thing for many years, but it felt like a real negative thing too to start. Well, not exactly at the start, more mid-range since I got clean from heroin and crack cocaine it was. Initially, I felt like, quite popular in the setting that I were in. People were interested, wanted to hear what I had to say. I was a service user rep. So that part were good, but then I moved into employment and there was a part of that where I think this was partly me. I had that imposter syndrome. I felt like I shouldn't be there. I was struggling with the other professionals, the addiction therapists and that kind of stuff. And I felt a bit stigmatised slightly in terms of ex-service user. There's a lot they can't do in this setting. But, that was 20 years ago. The positives of wearing that badge, so to speak, in the here and now, I feel like service user involvement has come up the ladder in terms of priority now. It's a big thing. And being able to work doing certain projects I've done, hidden in plain sight, domino effect, that kind of stuff. Being part and parcel of groups, with lived experience, having that lived experience myself, being able to relate, get involved, I found it an asset, really. And I feel now I'm easy to share that. That's why I'm here today, I suppose, because there was a time where I just went back on it and never really mentioned it and never disclosed, I didn't really have reason to department I were in, I don't suppose, but now service user involvement department, equality, diversity and inclusion. Yeah, I utilise it, I like it, it's a real positive thing.
I think in sectors like this, that lived experience voice now is probably more important than ever. And I think there was a time for me when being the service user involvement lead for my local service, that it often felt a little tokenistic, like, we need to hear feedback from people with lived experience because of a commissioner report or something like that. And now I feel like that's kind of really embedded into the practice in terms of co-production elements of the service and how this comes through. So, you yourself, you've worked for this organisation in particular for the last nearly 20 years.
19 years.
January
the 6th.
So with that level of abstinence then, what's changed for you because it's such a long period of time? And I guess the point that I'm trying to quickly get to is the difference between being in recovery and recovered. Now, after 19 years of working in service, and how long have you been abstinent now from heroin and crack cocaine?
So 2003, I had a severe injecting injury, like really bad. And it took me about 6 months after that before I became abstinent from heroin. Crack seemed to fall off the cliff straight away. It were heroin.
Was that like a byproduct of using heroin as well?
Yeah, with it all. But the recovered element and that message for me, I don't knock it. I don't knock the fact that people follow that I'm in recovery, I'm recovered, that kind of thing. For me, I'm an addict. I have always been an addict.
And you still identify as an addict
and
even
I'm
now?
an addict now. And do you know something? I hear so much negativity about that word, how people are, called an addict. And for me, I'm proud. I'm bizarrely, you might not get where I'm going with this yet, but I'm proud to be an addict. And the simple reason is it's what I've been from a child, before heroin addiction, before crack cocaine, before alcoholism, temazepam, whatever I've been addicted to. They were negative addictions for me. I have an addictive personality, and I was brought up being told you're addictive, like it's some disability and weakness that you shouldn't have, and you shouldn't allow to feed that addictive personality. And I believed that. I thought that's the case. Addiction it's terrible, and why is it me that's like this? But I sort of fell into addiction, these negative addictions, early 1990s. It's a bizarre story, really. So I'm a bit of an ornithologist.
What's one of them?
A bird watcher.
Okay.
A twitcher.
Yeah, a twitcher.
A twitcher. So basically, as a kid, I was quite obsessive. It was identified, as a bit obsessive. Can be a bit funny. So this obsession came about. There'd been all kinds of obsessions as a kid would. Toys, sports. I loved athletics. I was a champion runner and all that carry on at some point in school. And ornithology was the big thing. And I used to spend a lot of time looking into birds. And anyway, my favourite birds, and just bear with me because it's bizarre how I'm going from birds.
I'm interested to see where it goes. But go on, carry on.
So basically, it were birds of prey. Yeah. So as a kid, I see this film, The Beastmaster, and there's this dude with a pet tiger and a bird and an eagle. So I found out falconry existed. So basically, next thing, it's A Kestrel for a Knave, that book, Barry Hines, Kes, with Billy Casper. So I watched that. So I'm growing up at this point. I'm getting to about 11, 12 years of age. So I watched this Billy Casper. He goes to get his falconry book. Where does he go? Library. And they say, oh, no, you can't take it. You're not a member. So he goes and steals one. So that was the thing for me, bizarre as it sounds, where I sort of switched path. So quite a nice hobby of ornithology and the thought of falconry, it bizarrely led me into crime because I watched that film and as a kid thought, right, so I stole this book. And then before I knew it, I became quite obsessive about theft. I started to steal. I started to understand, hey, hang on a minute, I haven't really got much. I'm a kid, but I can get that. And then what came is I started to meet people. They were shoplifting. Peers, older people that were around Crossgates in Leeds, where I'm from. And then I learned, right, I steal these things. This is how I can now turn it into money. So you start to turn things into money then. Then the next step, bizarre thing, school. There were, we're all there with the centre partings and that in 1990s. And basically, we had to do work experience. So I said, I'd like to go with the fire service. No, they didn't. No, you can't go with fire service. They're not taking. So I had nowhere to go. So I ended up in a factory. This factory, again, full of older lads, peers. Now, I was already getting a bit of money. No, I'm not talking the earth, you know what I mean? But these older lads, they give me that direct access to drugs. Or do you smoke spliff? Or do you do this? Are you taking acid? Are you doing easy? So I had that direct link. So from bizarrely watching a film to then getting the confidence to start shoplifting just because Billy Casper did. Just that childish mentality at that age. Over time, it sort of took me down a path, and I ended up at about age of 14, 15, where I just decided, do you know what? I'm done. Done with school. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. The fear of having to go in and do a presentation about my work experience was a tipping factor. And I just packed school in and started knocking about with these lads, the older lads from Crossgates, like I say, and drugs just came straight in. And with my addictive personality, with money in my pocket, I latched on. And because I was part of a gang and I was part, peers older, they were a lot older than us. But then eventually down the line, I just sort of shrugged everyone else off and just thought, I'm going to get on with this on my own. People are, try to take from you. It were all these older lads influencing you. Come with us, do this kind of thing. And eventually it were like, do one. I'd do this on my own. But yeah, that's basically how I got into like full-blown heroin addiction. Early 1990s. Mid to late 1990s. And
just to talk about that a little bit with your childhood and that then, like, I always think it's really interesting because sometimes when we have these conversations, a reason for substance misuse or that addictive personality isn't necessarily the behaviours as such, it's how those behaviours make us feel. For instance, with the stealing, there must have been some sort of dopamine release there that made you feel good about it, you enjoyed it and how it made you feel. And people often talk about escapism through substances. What was your childhood like? What was your relationship like with your mum and dad? Did that have any impact on that thrill-seeking behaviour that you was trying to get?
Well, I was born with a single mum.
Okay.
My mum was, I think, 17 when she gave birth to me. And we lived with my grandma and granddad. And the family home was amazing. It was such a lovely place to be. This is where I might get a bit, like, emotional. But, yeah, it were really good in them early years. I suppose... And do you know when you feel the love too? And I think late down the line, we moved with, obviously, my mum were working and stuff, so I was spending a lot of time with my grandma and granddad, but my mum moved and I went with my mum, obviously. But my dad, my real dad, as I call him, non-existent, he was a soldier. I didn't know he was. I remember going to school and we had to see Father Driver, the priest. And I was that young, I didn't even really know. I knew, and he presented himself as Father Driver, embarrassed my mum by basically saying, "Oh, are you my father?" Because I was a kid, like a really young kid. I remember like other kids at school going, "What? You don't have a dad?" And I was like, "What's a dad?" So I didn't have a dad. I had an uncle, John, who was like a big brother. My grandma. My granddad. Just give me a minute, just 1 second, sorry.
Sorry, man.
It does this to me every time.
No, sorry, take your time.
Oh, sorry.
No, mate, honestly.
So, yeah. Let me just get a grip of my emotions. So, yeah, it was a nice upbringing up to a certain point. And then it was quite apparent I didn't fit into someone else's agenda as a young kid. So...
Whose agenda is that?
Well, that's my stepdad. That was my stepdad that come along. Pretend to be, like a bit of a geezer at times, but in reality, there's certain things and I'm just mushy. I get mushy with it. So Basically, what I did is I lived for the weekend. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and they were amazing. They were. So for me to go down the road that went, they suffered. They did suffer. And I were. Do you know I carried the guilt of that sometime. Yeah, it was difficult, really difficult. But, you know, I did what I did. And I think that if I hadn't have done that and I hadn't have lived the life I lived, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And I'm quite proud of the person that I am today. Like I say, the addictive personality side of things and the original question, before my emotions got a grip of me, the original question about recovery and being recovered, I don't look at it like that. I look at it now like I'm an addict. I'm no longer fighting with my addictions internally, which is difficult when you've got this really solid addictive personality where you latch onto things. And what it was, I would always attach to negatives. Maybe it had something to do with me upbringing, and that when it came to not really feeling wanted, that you know, you wanted to be loved, you didn't have a dad, that kind of, maybe that were some sort of trauma that were part and parcel of that. I don't know, but I won't really blame that. I think it was just the culture, the environment, and where I lived that got me into drug addiction, because I wasn't at school. I was knocking about with all the lads. I was shoplifting. There were money there, and there were people selling drugs, and I just followed that path really into that area. But for me, no, am I recovered? No, I won't call that. I'd say I'm still an addict. But what I do is now I focus my addictive personality on positive things. So work is key, family life, that, you know, that kind of stuff, health, rather than pushing down these negative avenues of addiction. Recent years, I fell into a path again with alcohol. Really difficult time. So I'm estranged from my mum. I don't speak to her.
Is that because of the things that had happened in your childhood?
Yeah. To do, there's, without getting into it, you know.
No, I'm not going to push on anything, mate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
defend herself, but I was left feeling deceived, and I didn't trust her. And when I took the step to do all the positive things, one key thing that I found, let's call it in recovery, is I've had to remove people that I've deemed as negative in my life. I've had to remove people because it was draining me, making my mindset so that it wasn't as positive as it should have been, and it could take me down dark avenues then, which is what occurred. I went through a separation, which I welcomed, if I'm being honest, and I took my 3 children. When I say took, I mean my eldest wanted to come along. I didn't go.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
In the midst of the night and
kidnap
run away with my kids. No, my younger 2 ended up coming with me. So that were all occurring. There were all these issues occurring with shit from my past and memories and trouble and all these deceitful area within my family. So, you know, I felt really let down and I felt very angry. And I became quite an angry person. And I was stressed a lot and unhappy, in all honesty. And don't get me wrong, there were some real big positives in my life. I had my 3 kids with me. And I tried my best to be round them, but nevertheless, the button got pushed. And I started drinking. And it wasn't like alcohol per se, it's like any alcohol that I'm desperate to drink it. It were Peroni. It had to be Peroni. Specifically bizarre.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, it all started because I wasn't really a big drinker, bizarrely with work, we went to do some training in London, and one of my colleagues said, we'll go for a meal the night before. So I went for a meal. Right, I'm going to have a drink, she said. I'm going to pick a drink. I went, oh no, I'll just have a Diet Coke, I'm fine. No, pick a drink. And I'm thinking...
Did she know you was in like...
Yeah.
Jesus.
I didn't think got it. I don't think she understood. I don't think she got it.
Evidently, yeah.
So, no, get a drink. No, I insist, I'll just have a Diet Coke. Can I have a slice of lime in it? Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll buy you one anyway. And said it's a premium lager. Now, I'd go to Christmas dinner and stuff when I were younger and just not have a drop. It just didn't bother me. This pint, bang, put that back with all the other shit that were going on in my life, the stress, the anger, everything that I was thinking about. It became, quite nice that, and it became a bit of a comfort thing. I look back 5 years on from that point, I'd put on about 4 stone, and I looked at myself. I remember thinking, what the fuck have you done? How has this happened to you again? You were an heroin addict. You've shrugged that off. And now all of a sudden, you're stuck in this again. Anyway, bizarrely, I fell down a flight of stairs. Quite a big bloke. Damaged my back. Found myself off work. Found myself on tablets, pain relief and stuff. I'd made a mess of my back. Anyway, went back to work. Things hadn't changed. Do you know, I was still drinking heavily on a weekend. Do you know, lads that were knocking about with, they'd nickname me 10 Pints Paul. You know, and it's
a great nickname.
Yeah, 10 Pints Paul. And it were like I were in that scene again. Yeah. I were in that scene, but spirits started to sneak in, and then this day woke up middle of night with this pain, like really bad pain in my stomach. And it was like debilitating. I'm thinking, oh no, there's something seriously wrong here. So basically, hospital, all these tests, sick note after sick note after sick note, time off work, like what's going on? And I found myself a lot of the time, because I was in pain, I couldn't drink. So that just faded away. But I was still left there, overweight, mentally ill, if I'm being totally honest. Really struggling with life, and just, you know, you'd wake up, I'd know to get up for at the time, I'd sleep when I wasn't in pain. Anyway, I'm on my phone, flicking through my phone, and I started following Tyson Fury, bizarrely. Because it's just these little things in life. For me, with this addictive personality, it's like, have that pint of premium lager, bam, I'm gone 5 years later, a mess. It's like being introduced to heroin 10 years later, before what occurred happened, and I got off the heroin. So Tyson Fury's on there, and he just pops up on this thing on Instagram. Anyone that's in recovery, if you don't have a positive mindset, don't waste your time, bang, went. Well, like, it's got a fair point, actually. I started thinking about, I ain't got a positive mindset at all. I'm just thinking bad shit all the time, negative stuff, focused on past, looking at all these different things that I felt other people had let me down about. And I thought, listen, this is your life. You need to be positive. Think of the positive things you've got and think of what you can do and what you're capable of. This, bizarrely again, Tom Hardy pops up. And I don't even know if he said this, but this thing come on the screen, and it basically said, all my life I've been told that addiction is a debilitating weakness. It's not. If used correctly, it can be like a superpower. And it were like this turning moment, just this little, you know, comment that I read on a phone just went bang. I started to apply what positive mindset, get up on my feet again, started to apply positive things into my life, routine, managing my diabetes, type 1 diabetes correctly, exercise, getting out with dogs, going to the gym, all that kind of carry on. And I felt myself getting better. I mean, don't get me wrong, I took the odd knock and fell down on one knee on occasion. And there were certain people out there that I could see were trying to keep me down. Just had to be strong, I suppose, and stand up and push forward. Like I had done, I kept telling myself, mate, you were an heroin addict for 10 years. And you come out of that, this should be a doddle. Started losing weight, started enjoying life again, yeah. And I mean, by that point, I'd got a new partner, I was with my new partner, my kids were growing up, they were starting college, going to York College. My one son was a boxer, a rapper. And I had a lot there around me to be proud of, and people at work then started to see that, and I got some really good opportunities at work. I got a lot of support from one of the directors, David, but he'd moved on, and a new supervisor popped up. I've been here that long, I've lost count of the amount of people that have supervised me. But Chris Benfield turned up, and he understood, supported me. I explained everything to him, he supported me, and he gave me some opportunity. So I started to think, right, you've got this personality, apply it at work the best you can. We did the volunteer movies, we did the volunteer advertisement with a group of people with lived experience of alcoholism. When we did that, I think I were 2 years prior to that were when I virtually stopped drinking. Still drink, but on occasion and not to extremes that I did.
It don't cause like a trigger in a relapse or anything that, does it?
No, I've got a partner that I love to bits, my fiancée, Louise, and she keeps me in place. She keeps an eye on this. She's well aware of what I'm like, what my triggers are, how I can go, and, there's not much effort in it, I don't think, in terms of negatives to pull me a different way now. I'm with my partner, I love my children, I love her family are amazing. So I'm now part and parcel of Louise's family, and such a warm, loving family that, all this positivity around me generates positivity. Yeah. When I look
infectious,
back,
isn't it?
It's very infectious. And when I look back to the negative times in my life with the negative addictions, heroin, crack, coke, alcohol, all that carry on, I was in a very bad situation in life. I was really unhappy with the situation I was in, so all that was negative. And it always sort of, before though, I'd change, before that addictive personality would snap and go a different direction, I always found myself face down in dirt before I'd actually stand up and do out about it. The heroin, the trigger to stop heroin, I injected like a full syringe of street heroin into an artery, and it's when it's pink, stop and think. There were no stopping and thinking for me that day. All my veins were collapsing. We'd had a good run. I'd had a good run, I think. I'd had a lot of, I'm not going to lie, I'd had a lot of fun. In part of, we were shoplifters, yeah. We used to obtain lots of goods the way we did, and we'd get a lot of money doing that in the 1990s, 300 and sometimes 300, 400 pound a day. In the 1990s, I'd say were quite a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, it's not Brinks-Mat robbery, I don't like that. It's just, so there were money, clothes on my back, trainers on my feet and all that carry on. Now, I got into heroin looking up at the other people. They were driving around in XR3Is, XR2s. You didn't see the badness. I was going to say, behind
you're only seeing the positives, aren't you?
You're seeing, we go and have a laugh, we go shoplifting, we go around North Yorkshire, we travel about in these cars, we get this money and we go. And it was fun, but then it wasn't fun.
There comes a time when the party stops, don't they?
And
So,
it did stop.
yeah.
It did stop really harshly and hard. So
Tell me about this then, because with yourself, and you might be getting to this point already anyway, so sorry to interject, but with the problems with alcohol, specifically Peroni, you just said that because of the back injury, that just sort of disappeared over time.
Yeah.
What was the moment in terms of the heroin and the crack addiction where it was, right, party's over now,
Party's
rock
over.
bottom, life's low, need to sort this shit out, basically?
yeah, so party's over. You've injected a load of street heroin into your artery. When it's pink, stop and think, like I say. No thinking, panicking, try to get it in to feel well so I can get out at dawn and go try and get some more money to sort myself out later in the day. That moment that I did that to myself, the feeling of pain was something that I had never ever felt in my entire life, like this electrical nerve pain down my left arm from my elbow to my hand. And I kid you not, I screamed at the highest pitch I have ever heard in my entire life. And I immediately knew, shit, I've done something severe here, this is bad. My arm started to swell. Stupidly, went off, thought, no, it'll be fine. Went and got some more heroin, took that, and then went and had to go to hospital. Went to hospital, there's a big waiting room of people, and they rushed me straight in, and I thought, shit. And everyone, I remember, you have to be a fucking junkie to get anywhere in this hospital. Anyway, I got in, and basically what they did is, one of the consultants or whoever they were said, we might have to remove your arm from the elbow down. So, bizarrely, the first thing I thought, I used to work on bins years back, and there was a bloke got his arm trapped in back at bin wagon, and everybody nicknamed him Stumpy.
Is this like a real story or like an urban legend? Full-on legend
no, it
story?
happened. He was there. He used to do all books and that, and wrote us.
Old Stumpy, bless him.
And rather than me thinking, oh shit, I might not have a left arm, how will I operate without a left arm? The first thing I thought is, fuck, my mates are going to nickname me Stumpy. Yeah. And anyway, I was just like, just when you look back and you think like that, it's like, what were you thinking? What was going on in your
concern,
head?
Yeah.
First concern,
Stumpy.
my nickname's going to be Stumpy. So anyway, they did the operation. They opened my arm from the elbow to the palm of my hand, called the fasciotomy, unblocked what is your carpal tunnel in your wrist, took a skin graft off the top of my left leg and stapled it with brass staples onto the open wound after 3 days of letting it drain. When they took that off, that was a shocking moment when they took the pot off my arm and I had to see it open with this skin graft on it. That rocked me. And I've been on medication. My doctor was great. He looked after me. I didn't go down any of the NA routes or anything like that. Just wasn't for me. Just wasn't for me, any of that. There was a bit of relapsing to and from with smoking it, but then again, I got this opportunity. I booked into college. I went to study social sciences, and then hopefully be able to start applying for jobs, start to get some experience. But yeah, very quickly, from that moment of sheer terror, thinking, oh no, I'm going to be called Stumpy, it went from that to, yeah, I had a bandage on my arm, and yeah, there were odd bit of piss takings, from certain people and that. As, human race does as people, I've done it myself, give people a bit of a dig and that but I thought, nah, I've got an opportunity and I can get a career out of this. I can use all that fucking bad shit over the last 10 years or whatever else to flip it on its head. And I want to be a drugs worker. That's what I'm going to do.
But before we move into the moving into the path towards being a drugs worker, that experience in hospital I found really interesting. You said you experienced the sort of, I guess, the stigma from other people in that waiting room. Yeah. You have to be a junkie to get anything here. Do you feel like you was treated differently by the medical staff there for being a drug addict? Do you think there was again, that you were stigmatized by them, that you wasn't maybe taken seriously enough, that they didn't care. What was that like in that experience? Because I always hear interesting things about people's experience, and they often think, again, the people I haven't spoken to, that they felt like they would have been treated better if there wasn't a known heroin addict. What was your experience in that setting?
That particular setting, I felt all right. I thought they treated me well. Like the consultant doctor was sound with me, really nice with me. Nurses, generally nice. It wasn't like in comparison to your doctor's receptionist.
Okay, yeah.
I don't, because I felt it.
You've experienced that before, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt it when I worked for Primary Care Trust as a drugs worker. I felt it from other professionals. Yeah, I really felt that then. But like I say, it was a different era in 2004, 2005 that would have been. Yeah, but I have felt stigma for openly being an addict, and yeah, I've felt it in
it's interesting there that
settings.
For me on that story there, the people that I thought would have stigmatised you, i.e. surgeons, consultants, they hadn't.
No.
But the professionals that you're working alongside, that you're there to help with that lived experience, being stigmatised by them. That's quite interesting. You'd think it would be
bizarre,
the opposite way around for that.
Yeah, bizarre. Bizarre. But I've also felt, this is weird, because I walked into the profession thinking, yeah, great, I'm an ex-service user, I'll be able to work really well with all these different people, maybe some that I know, Nah. I got this immediate feeling from the people from the local area where I was part of that drug using community. I felt like they were thinking, yeah, I don't want what to do with him. Nah, I'm not. Who's he think he is? He
thinks he's better than us.
And I genuinely didn't. I just wanted to move on with my life, have a career, not a job, a career. That's what I wanted, and I wanted to be able to earn some good money, doing some real good things in life with people. It wasn't really. I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't know everyone, so I had quite a successful time working for the Primary Care Trust with a lot of people, but I saw an opportunity to get out, and I went out.
Do you know what, on the topic of that, in terms of peers and, you know, being made to feel the way you was made to feel by them there, one of the interesting things that I've spoken about recently with people who use the service that are in aftercare, so the interesting thing is, when I was using, no one was offering me gear because, you know, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
The second I got abstinent, everyone starts turning up. Here, mate, you can have some of mine. Because, and it goes back to the idea of your peer group. They might like to see you do well, but not better than them. And if you start to, you know, achieve recovery and they're not ready for it, or they're not able to do it, they're going to try and drag you back down with them because they don't want to see you do well.
Yeah.
Can you relate to that?
Yeah. Massively. But it's not just that group of people that I used to use drugs with or commit crime with. What I found a lot of the time is there were a lot of people in the community that were looking at me going, yeah, scourge your cross gates, dirty, horrible heroin addict. Yeah. And so they looked down on me, I felt. There were quite a lot. Don't get me wrong, not everybody. I've had a pat on back many a time by many a person, genuine people. But there were certain people that you could tell, and it always seemed to be about materialistic things. If a new car turned up, so I got quite a nice car when I started with Primary Care Trust because you got a company car, so to speak. So I got myself this little lovely silver Audi A3. I sensed certain things from certain people at that point. We got a mortgage, you know, as you do. You've got a career, you're progressing, you're moving on, and
life moves
you
on.
know. But you'd feel that sort of from certain people, family members. Not my family at that time. They were behind me. My mum, she was behind me too. But there were certain elements you could feel. There were certain people, and yeah, to a degree, there were certain characters in family that you'd feel like. In community, the more you step up, you know, you get your kitchen done, and it's like you could sense that
jealousy.
It's a true thing. It's a real thing. But like I say, that were a percentage of people, but there were a lot of people that would go, wow, is he for real? That's, and there's some real genuine people out there and positive people out there that are just happy for you to do well, knowing how bad you'd done at one point in your life, obviously. Yeah.
So I think in terms of your career, that 19 years with the organisation, you've progressed into so many different roles. When I first started talking to you was the head of accredited learning. Is that the correct title? Now I think maybe the reason why I hadn't made the connection for you to be lived experience is because that job title, head of accredited learning, sounds very fancy, and it's also not necessarily like a lived experience or what I would expect for someone with lived experience to be in.
Yeah.
And I mean the role you do now, service user involvement, the national service user involvement, I get that because it's working with service users. Tell me a little bit about how your experience as an addict has influenced the work that you've done, the jobs you've had, and what has the positives been? Because as you said, in terms of addiction, that addict mentality is not a weakness. If you channel that mentality into positive things, as you've said, it creates positive outcomes. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your career in drug and alcohol treatment services.
It sort of come about very quickly. I didn't finish the college course that I jumped in to get me into employment. I got opportunities from basically a friend. He was my drugs worker and he became a friend. And I got educated in certain ways and opportunities came to support him as he was a service user involvement lead. So I become a service user rep. Back in 2004, 2005, I started working with commissioners in Leeds about developing community drug treatment services, where there would a change. That was a change from the old Leeds addiction unit, which was a horrific environment to go into. To think, I've got to get off heroin, I need to stop, I need to go there. It was terrible. So we had the opportunity to start developing community drug treatment services. After that, that was service user representative role. After that, there were then a privileged access mapping exercise that I got opportunity for paid employment in, coordinating and working with a group, just like myself, but I got that opportunity getting to do research and surveys around drug abuse in East Leeds. Did that, then went to work with young people's youth offending team. Weren't there very long, small budget, short period of time into harm minimisation in West Leeds drug treatment service. Absolutely loved that job. In a needle exchange van, driving around West Leeds, going and collecting the dirty needles, offering interventions around harm minimisation, referral options, that kind of stuff, and leaving the clean needles.
I love the idea of doing it in a van. I think that's a great idea. That going out into the community instead of expecting the community to come to you. That's a brilliant idea.
And meeting active people in active heroin addiction. Some people that I sort of recognise from Leeds City Centre and that kind of stuff when we used to shoplift there. And I absolutely fucking loved that. I really loved working there for Barker. Small charity at one at the time, Bramley and Rodley, Community Action, something like that it was called. The work I'd done with the Primary Care Trust, developing the drug treatment services, not like it was me. Don't think I was sat there on a computer doing all the path.
Yeah.
It was my feedback and supporting how the structure should be. And I felt listened to too. Do you know, if I'm being honest, I did feel listened. It wasn't tokenistic. And I got a job for Primary Care Trust. It was like, wow, it's been, 18 months from what happened. And I've got a NHS name badge around my neck that says drugs worker on it. I couldn't have been as proud. Honest to God, it was amazing.
It makes such a big difference that I don't think, I think I underestimate how much of a big deal it is to get your first name badge. Especially from
still got it.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? But it's true. I've met so many, working volunteers in the way that I do. For me, I put my white badge on every day. Obviously, I don't wear a uniform; it's a badge.
Yeah.
I maybe take it for granted a little bit, but I remember giving one of my volunteers her first name badge, and she nearly started crying.
Yeah,
because it was such a big milestone for her to go from where she was to where she is now, and I just had underestimated that completely.
Yeah, I feel that it was such a proud moment. I got to work there. I'll be honest, I didn't really like it because what it was, there were staff that had come from the old Leeds addiction unit into this new structure. I don't think they were entirely happy.
No. A lot of resentment when people move over, don't they, from
there's
places
all
like that.
methods and ways of thinking in terms of they're the service users. No, we don't really want to be
mixing with them. Yeah,
and having them do things, but. There were one individual, Steve, one of the therapists, and he took me under his wing and were like, look, you've come in from a service user background. There's certain talents there, but let me teach you this professional side of things, and really started to push home certain things. So I were there for a bit, and then that opportunity come. CRI started to come busting up the country, and I put it all in the Yorkshire Evening Post, loads of CRI jobs, obviously now Change, Grow, Live. And I got a job, volunteer coordinator over in York. It was what I thought, I think that'll be good. And we did peer mentor training. So I sort of reflected a lot back on, I did a bit, not much time. It was 3 weeks, trust me, it wasn't a long time. So I did 3 weeks in prison in Hull, come out, banked some offences up, and we're looking at 18 months. We're thinking, shit, I've done it again, haven't I? But luckily, probation officer stepped in and said, do you want to do intensive probation? So I said, yeah, damn right. What, rather than go to prison? Yeah, that's fine. So I did this intensive probation, and there were certain elements that were education. So when it come to working and developing this peer mentor training program, and there were people already in place, that had certain bits of accreditation, but it were pitched too high. So there were a lot of redevelopment done. And I remember thinking to myself, how the fuck have I ended up here? I left school at 15, having the bright idea of being some professional shoplifter extraordinaire. And now all of it, I had no exams, passed none of my exams, not even the one where the police dropped me off at school.
Yeah.
So how have I ended up doing this? And it felt like the right thing to do, to give people the opportunity to have a formal recognised qualification at level 2. We got 5,500 people through a level 2 diploma, which I'm very, very proud of. But times changed, and then it become more, rather than qualifications, accreditation. So we started with the accreditation. So your qualification, you provide learning evidence. The accreditation, it's about bums on seats and getting people the relevant, up-to-date information regarding policy, procedure, all that carry on. So that were another side to develop. And after COVID, it seemed like it was dying on its feet. And I thought, right about the time that the positive mindset kicked in, I thought, I'm going to change that. 200 year 1, 700 year 2, and then I think it were 1,380 or something for year 3. And I thought, wow. So that was it. I sort of fell into accredited and regulated learning, but I could see that I personally believe what supports recovery, if we're calling it recovery, it's education and opportunity. And I felt that these courses will do that, and they're going to support people to do it. And it become quite... it still is quite popular, that accreditation, and it looks like for the future that's what we're going to be doing, applying accreditation to so many things to support people coming, with lived experience from service user into volunteer and then up into staff.
And transferring those life skills that they've got and those experiences into qualifications as well. And I think, interestingly, you talk about failing your exams. I'm having this conversation with my niece at the moment. She's gone in to do her GCSEs, and I understand the pressure because these are subjects that we all have to do that we don't necessarily want to do and we're not interested in, but we have to do. And then as you get older, you find, hang on, actually, there's more choice. I want to do this course now. I want to do this course now. Sometimes the options aren't there for people, but with what this organisation does, especially people who've been through, the adversities of addiction, to use those experiences into something positive. And hang on, there's the possibility that you can get a job here doing something that you want to do. How much more interesting is that to apply that, even that addict mentality and that positive mindset into something that is going to benefit you and not benefit the system, should we say, sort of thing.
And that's the thing. It's that opportunity, and it's that for me, if we're calling it recovery, my recovery stage in life, it's I attached my addictive personality to getting that career and moving on in life and being able to really look after my children. That were the thing, and to enjoy myself. I enjoyed the job. I still do. I absolutely love the job. I
always say this, it don't feel like work some days, does it? Some days you think, I'm lucky to be here. I've had jobs where I have dreaded going into work on a Monday. I spent my entire Sunday just miserable. A day off spent miserable because I've got work tomorrow. You just don't have that in this sector, do you? Very rarely. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that do, but for me personally, I've never had that. And I think it's such a rewarding job and a rewarding sector that we get to work in. Like, I've worked in this field 10 years now, and I've shared this story before, but I'd only ever really last about 2 or 3 months in a job before I'd either get the sack or I'd quit. Yeah. And yet somehow I've done 10 years here. Yeah. The difference being I'm doing something positive.
Yeah, that's it. Key, positive. Positive mindset, positive attitude, and getting people around you that also are pumping positivity. And it just, the things that you then do and the people that you see progress on it a day. Someone from Domino Effects, they've messaged me and just said, I've got the job. Yeah. And it's like, fucking come on. Have well some done, of that. Yeah.
Talk to me about Domino Effect then. So you've gone from, we just ended then on head of accredited learning, but for the last almost a year now, I think it's been, you've been the National Service User Involvement League, which is a big responsibility. Interestingly enough, the friend you was talking about earlier, you used to be a service user rep, and now you are the National Service User Involvement League. That's a proper full circle moment, I think. Yeah. You're working on multiple projects that are much like this podcast, is there to challenge stigma and to, I guess, showcase some of the realities of what life in addiction can be like for people and the positives of overcoming those addictions. Let's finish on these projects that you're working on. Talk to me about the Domino Effect. How did that come to be, and what are the next steps for yourself?
So I'll take it back 2 stages so that you fully understand. I approached my supervisor at the time when this positive surge come, and I thought, right, I'm having some of this. I want to do, my life's been shit, and I've been the cause of that, being negative. So previously, many, many years ago, over a decade ago, I'd worked with let's call him a colleague, Kev from Inspired Youth. We'd done about 3 or 4 similar films and events back then. So when it's come to me thinking, right, what can I do? I saw a problem that we needed to promote volunteering. There weren't enough volunteers, I was being told. So I said, we need to do a promotion. We need to do an advert film. So this is what we do. We do these groups. We co-produce it with people with lived experience. So we'll go and we'll speak with the volunteers. We'll get them in a room. They'll participate in the film. Really had a good time. Really enjoyed myself. Took myself back to way back. And this is selfish about building myself back up again. So working with Kev again. I hadn't seen him for 10 years. So I just this one day picked phone up, phoned him. All right, Kev. And they were like, all right, Paul, like it.
Like no time had passed, yeah.
So we did the first one, we did the event, And I remember, I know I got emotional at the start of this podcast. I remember getting emotional there. I was stood at the front. We finished this volunteer advert. We showed it. Big round of applause, everyone clapping. And do you know when you feel like you're hitting milestones, you're getting places, you're moving up, you're confidence-wise, speaking openly, publicly again in front of people. And off the back of that, I was invited to a meeting in East Lancashire. East and North and Central, maybe. Yeah. East Lancashire. And what an amazing group of people the managers up there are. There's, Nikki Armitage, she runs it up there, but there's then Danielle Hickey and there's Lisa Curtis, them kind of people. And I sat down and I just told my story. I just thought, I'm just going to be open and honest here. Said where I've been, said now we try to do these different things and we've got these different opportunities by interlinking with Kev at Inspired Youth. If there's any money, we'd be more than happy to do some form of project. Showed Kev's masterpiece. It's a great piece of work that he'd done donkeys years ago called Music for Care. Showed him that, and there were a few tearful moments. Do you know, there were emotion in the room. I felt emotional myself, and it were like, right, we'd like to do something. I'm going to look into this, and what we want is to do something regarding alcohol awareness. We're not getting enough people through the door regarding alcoholism. Do something. Amazing experience. What a time we had. We did it hidden in plain sight and premiered it at a cinema in Preston. Amazing event, and I felt it again. That big step up, and really enjoying working with the group. The people in the groups, great groups of people with lived experience, and feeling part and parcel of it all again, and feeling like we're making a difference. We are doing things that are going to inspire people into this positive change. Off the back of that, I got approached again from Jackie in Manchester. Straight away, we want to do something, and we come up with a pitch of exactly what it would be that we'd do. We were entered into a journey, and we got to know a group of people, 7 people in the domino effect. And don't get me wrong, I've met some amazing people in Hidden in Plain Sight, seen them move into employment. Zusha being one of the key people, and Kev Jackson that does the drone footage. 2 amazing people that stand out from Hidden in Plain Sight, come along and supported us to do the domino effect based on their experience of the previous project. But the domino crew, I met such an amazing group of people. Kat, Sarah, Rob, he's gaining employment, Dave, marching, Harriet. What an amazing group of people to get the privilege of not just knowing, but working with too. I had so much fun when we started to actually create the film, and I became part and parcel of the development of the film, and the ideas, some of the ideas were mine and Kev's combined. We'd do a lot of work in the car driving back from Manchester on M62, sussing out what had happened in the actual session, and then how we can start to change it, create the song with Liam, Critical Powers, the lyricist. And yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I know the group did. And the premiere event, I've been talking, we've mentioned my career and how long I've been in this profession and where I've been and what I've done and that kind of stuff. That day, for me, that experience as well, and working with them particular 7 people, stands out for me as being the best part of my career from day dot. Without a shadow of a doubt. I remember we had to do a promotion event, and again I was pushing myself, thinking but one of my big fears is public speaking, so I need to challenge that now, and I need to try and achieve more. And I stood up and I did people stand up and say, my name's Paul, I'm an addict, kind of thing. So I didn't say it like that, but I spoke of my lived experience and said about being clean, stopped using heroin 20 years ago. That some of them stood up and applauded, and I got this big, and I felt this rush come right up my body, like wow. And I felt I had to say, just give me a minute. You're just gonna have to give me a minute. And yeah, from that point on, working with the Seven, it would out of this world. The music video, I think, if to any listeners, please go on to just search it. The Domino Effect Inspired Youth on Google.
It's a very emotive piece. I'm quite jaded. I don't often get tearful, although I did recently at the end of Coco, the Disney film. But it doesn't always happen. Coco. But when I watched the Domino Effect, I got a similar feeling. I felt the tear sort of in the eyes, and it's just a really powerful piece. And we say, we often say nobody goes into addiction alone, and we know about these things that are highlighted in the Domino Effect, but I don't think we give them as much attention as we should. And in that piece, I think it can't be ignored. It can't be ignored that the effect that it has on children and older children who are then having to look after their siblings and all this because of substance use. And just what a powerful piece for something that is, 10 minutes long, just under.
The music video is 10 minutes long.
The documentary is about 25, isn't it?
About 25, half an hour, something between. But that was a key thing for me. Hidden in plain sight at the time because of the alcohol awareness and where I'd been recently with alcohol, but hidden in plain sight. And, reflecting back on the start of this podcast, and I get quite emotional when I speak about family and my grandparents and stuff, but doing a project about affected others, I just felt, do you know what? It don't get me wrong, it was all about the inspiration of inspiring people into recovery too, but addressing that affected others element and inviting family members into the actual filming of the documentary to give their view and opinion. And it made me look back and just think, wow, I wish there'd have been the services available to my grandparents back then, so they had somewhere to turn, because they didn't. And that's the key thing as well.
Did your grandparents ever see you achieve sobriety?
Well, this is the thing. My granddad was still about just after my arm injury, the fasciotomy, the injecting into the artery. It was just about not long after. So he saw a bit. But in reality, did he get to... No, I felt the guilt and everything, and the fact that I'd left it too late. That's
what gets you. Yeah.
That's what gets me. I just wanted them to be proud. My grandma, who basically... My grandma always had my back, honest to God. My granddad did, but my grandma were always there like a Jack Russell fighting in the corner. And it didn't matter if I'd done wrong or right. What she'd do then is she'd collar me at home and go, you little bugger.
Stick up for you in public, but the second he's behind closed doors,
Yeah. My grandma saw it. My grandma saw the kids start to get brought up. She saw me buy a home. I spent a lot of time with her, but then... She died many years before she actually died. She got dementia before, I think it was a couple of years before COVID. And I got to see her, and some days she didn't have a clue but I'd go see her. I'd go see her anyway. But before she passed, bizarre thing, I turned up at the nursing home this day, went in, sat down, she looked at me and went, all right, love. And I'm thinking, fuck, this is odd. She knew I was.
Yeah.
She spoke to me. COVID kicked in a month after, maybe a couple of weeks after. I never got that privilege again. Month went by, COVID kicked in, couldn't see her, COVID killed her. And if I'm honest, it was a relief. You know, it was a relief for her at that, for me at that point, to see it where she was. I remember, because I lived with them and spent so much time with them both, they said to me, don't ever let us get in that state, will you? Put a bullet through his head, will you? We don't want to.
If only it was that simple for us as family members to do for our loved ones when things like that happen. But
yeah, I felt okay. My grandma saw it. I know if there is a God and if my granddad is there in spirit and he's watching, I think he'll be proud.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't see how you wouldn't be.
Nah. The key thing, you bring them kids up, Paul. Yeah. And I think I've done that.
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for being on the episode. I like to end all my podcasts with a series of 10 questions unrelated to what we've spoken about so far. Quick fire questions to end on what I like to think is a bit more of a positive note. And my first question is, what is your favourite word?
Word? Wow, that's how bizarre is that? A bogey.
A bogey.
Do you know why that's come up? I just remembered that from being a kid, listening to my uncle get asked it, and he'd say bogey. That's my favourite word. Yeah.
Least favourite word?
Ooh. I think smackhead.
Smackhead. The stigma behind it.
The stigma behind that smackhead. Addict for me is positive, but smackhead. People say that uneducated about actually what the impact it can have. Yeah,
absolutely. Tell me something that excites you.
Bizarrely work, but falconry. Love it. Falconry. Holiday, there's so much. I could. You've asked a question there. I can just go on.
Go on. Tell me something that doesn't excite you.
Ooh. That's a difficult one as well. What doesn't excite me? Do you know what? I might have to pass on that one.
What sound or noise do you love?
These are bizarre questions. What noise do I love? Ooh. Oh, I need to be careful. There's all kinds of shit going through my brain now. I'm struggling to answer that. The crowd. Do you know what? The crowd, when that day, the domino effect, the crowd.
An audience applauding.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Do you know what I can't stand? Absolutely winds me up. Do you know when you're watching telly? And you can hear that background noise of another telly or a phone or a radio or something.
Can't concentrate.
That drives me up the wall.
Favourite swear word?
Ooh, I don't know if I should say it.
Say it. Say it.
Cunt.
There you go.
It's got two meanings, hasn't it? You're either a victim or you're horrible. Yeah, it can be used in different ways.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
To be a falconer.
What profession would you not like to do?
Be a bin man.
And lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Ooh. Your grandma and granddad are waiting for you.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And you just don't want to be a bin man because you don't want to end up being another Stumpy, do you?
Stumpy, no.
Brilliant. Cheers, Paul. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed this episode of the Believe in People podcast, we'd love for you to share it with others who might find it meaningful. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and leaving a review will help us reach more people and continue challenging stigma around addiction and recovery. For additional resources, insights and updates, explore the links in this episode description. And to learn more about our mission and hear more incredible stories, you can visit us directly at believingpeoplepodcast.com.